Let me see.
This will be the special call meeting of the City Council for August 30th, 2010. Nancy Diamond is absent with an excuse. Do we have a motion to approve the appointment of Nancy Talmert-Yamaz to the Cultural Arts Board?
So moved.
Motion by Councilman Betty Price. Do we have a second? Second by Councilmember Eichelhart. All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously. At this time, we'll hear from our City Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. First item on my agenda is a public hearing to consider revocation or suspension of the alcoholic beverage license of Mustafa Mirza Kanahalu, El Indariego, 100 North Cross Street, Roswell, Georgia.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm Bob Holsey, the Assistant City Attorney for the record. Tonight, the purpose of the hearing is to consider whether the evidence will justify the revocation or suspension of the alcohol license of Mr. Mirzakanlu and El Andariego. And I apologize to your client if I'm not pronouncing that correctly. There are three charges. The first one is that the employee, Jose Carias, served alcohol to a person under the age of 21, undercover agent Eslava. We have, because Ms. Eslava is a college student at the University of Georgia, she was here prepared to testify tonight. She had to leave at 9 o'clock, and the attorney for El Andariego, Jeffrey P. Rothenberg, and Mr. Rothenberg is sitting here representing the licensee, stipulated on that first count that there was a sale of alcohol to a minor. So that will be stipulated for the record, and Mr. Rothenberg can add anything he wants to add to that. The second charge tonight is that the licensee did violate Chapter 3, Section 3.5.8a, Article 3.5 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Roswell, by failing to have alcoholic beverages delivered to the licensed premises in the original container and by a conveyance owned and operated by a licensed wholesale dealer permitted by the City of Roswell to make deliveries. And number three, the licensee did violate Chapter 3, Section 3.7.3a1 through 4. That's the section that requires the licensed premises have kitchen facilities to adequately prepare and serve meals on the premises for customers. And our allegation is that they did not have that during the period. And these charges stem from a police investigation on the night of July 30th, 2010, and that less than 50% of the revenues are derived from food. And of course, you know, the ordinance that the council has always insisted upon is that to have an alcohol license, you must be a restaurant, you must serve food, and that food service and sales must be more than 51% of your total revenues in order to have the alcohol license. Pursuant to Section 3.3.2a of the Code of Ordinances, this council has the authority to either suspend or revoke the license. This is a civil proceeding. It is not a criminal proceeding. There are separate criminal proceedings pending in the municipal court. It has no relevance to this proceeding tonight. The code authorizes the council to suspend or revoke in its discretion the license for any violation of the alcoholic code. So if we have already a violation, that would justify revocation or suspension as the council sees fit. And I'm sure Mr. Rothenberg will bring to the council's attention reasons that he believes that his client should not have the license revoked, but rather have a suspension or perhaps nothing. I'm sure he'll tell the council his feelings and what he suggests the evidence has on that. I would emphasize that the standard of proof, or how you measure what we present tonight, it is the civil standard. It's a preponderance of the evidence. That is, if what the city presents slightly weighs more than a violation not occurring, then you would find in the city's favor. After this, if the licensee is dissatisfied with council's action in any way, the licensee has the opportunity to file an appeal to Superior Court by way of certiorari to the Superior Court. At this time, I would like to call Sergeant Cameron Rowe. Mr. Rowe, if you raise your right hand, do you swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I did.
So help you God.
I did.
All right. If you would, tell come over here and speak to the mic.
Procedurally, I'd like to hear an opening, not a complete summary of the case, but I know what your case is about. I'd like just to hear an opening from the defense so the counsel will see what may be coming forward in this case. I'd like to have an opening.
Certainly.
If he wishes an opening, I'd like to give him that opportunity. And
Thank you,
please
Mayor.
keep it brief.
Yes. Good evening, Mayor, council members. I represent Mustafa Mirzakanlu and Ella Andriego. Ella Andriego is actually just a business name. The corporation is not named in this action, which is NNS Food Incorporated. At the time of this business opened in 2004 and has been in operation just a few feet from here for the last 5 to 6 years, continuously without any violations. At the time of the first charge for selling to an underage person, my client was visiting his mother in Iran and was out of the country. And so he has no personal knowledge of what transpired, but I made the assumption that the young lady that was here could prove that she was under the age of 21 and would testify that she did receive a beer, and so we are not contesting that. If it happened, it happened. It was not the policy of this business to serve underage people alcohol, and if that happened, it was a mistake. And in the spirit of cooperation, rather than keep this young lady from going back to the university, we did stipulate that she was sold the beer. As far as the second charge, we have with us tonight all of the alcohol invoices from the wholesaler. My client buys all of his alcohol from 2 different wholesalers who are duly licensed. The evidence will show that on some occasions somebody would come in and ask for something that particular wholesaler does not carry, and as a favor to a customer, a bottle of a particular alcohol would be purchased, and it would perhaps last 3 or 4 months. My client was just unaware that that was a violation of the ordinance, but 99.9% of all of the alcohol was purchased from the wholesaler for the last 5-6 years. My client has always had, in regard to the third complaint, my client has always had a fully operating kitchen and has served food at his business. And he leases the property, the evidence will show, and the landlord this year in April decided to renovate the property, including the installation of a gas line and some additional kitchen equipment, a hood, and a open fryer. The city has, for the last 5-6 years, the fire department has inspected the business. The food department has inspected it, and it has always passed inspection. But this year, when the fire department came and saw that there was a fryer and no hood, but it did require this gas line to install, which has taken several months, they prohibited the sale of food. So what we have here is a situation where an alcohol license, a license to sell alcohol, but is prohibited by the same city from selling food since April. And the documents we have here show that everything has been installed. My client has, the evidence will show, has paid or is paying the sum of $10,000 for that work, and would have been able to continue to sell food when these inspections were made, but for the fact the city denied him the right to sell the food until the permits, the work was done and the permits were installed. So we're here today understanding that we've admitted to one violation, and we are seeking tonight a suspension rather than a revocation, which would cause irreparable damage to my client, the employees, and so we'll proceed with the case.
All right, this time I'll call Sergeant Rowe. Sergeant, if you'll tell counsel your name and your occupation.
My name is Cameron Rowe, R-O-E. I'm a detective sergeant with the police department.
All right. Now, Sergeant Rowe, if you would tell counsel, we've dealt with the underage drinking count, so that's not before counsel. Let's deal with what you learned from the licensee regarding where he obtains his alcohol. Could you tell counsel?
He told us in an interview that he purchases the alcohol from a liquor store on Beaufort Highway.
Was your understanding that this was purchasing all of his alcohol there?
Yes.
All right. When you went to let me back up. Have you been to Andariego on more than one occasion?
Yes, I have.
Do you have some pictures to show counsel regarding your visit, I believe, in April?
April the 5th.
All right. Would you put that up on the screen?
There it is.
We have some pictures to show you.
Open that up. This is the inside of the restaurant. We'll proceed through the slides here as fast as this machine will take us. Continuing inside. You can see that there's very few customers on the inside here.
About what time of night?
This was about 10 o'clock at night.
Okay.
This was a person that was that identified himself to us as being the manager because Mustafa was out of town. This is a photograph of the kitchen area. The kitchen area is just adjacent to the bar area. This is a refrigerator that really had no content to it. Over here you can see that there's a freestanding refrigerator, and just inside it are pitchers. There's a little bit of orange juice. This over on the left-hand side, this is this at the time when we asked about it, this was the source of how it was that he was cooking his food. The microwave oven. Let me back up here. There's taking into consideration the size of the kitchen here. We'll show you here just shortly that this back area where this microwave is. Shortly, you'll see that what they made reference to earlier about the stovetop and the gas line has been added to it. Again, a continuation of the kitchen. We didn't see. You can see that these things up here, just in the center, up at the very top, are styrofoam containers and paper plates over here. We didn't really see much in the way of china. This is the inside of one of his freezers. On the inside of that double refrigerator is a single box of limes. This is ranch dressing, a little bit of mayonnaise, and some a little bit of leftover birthday cake. Continue through it, and the refrigerators that are out in the main portion of the kitchen, in the main portion of the bar area, are completely stocked up with beer.
All right, Sergeant. Did you see any evidence of menus at the establishment?
We saw none.
All right. When you went back on July 30th, what did you observe?
The same thing.
All right. So nothing had changed during that time from April until July 30th?
They had done just a little bit of the work that was described. That there was some additional the flat top and the overhead grill, the overhead vent hood.
based upon your personal observations at the establishment, was it operating as a restaurant in your opinion?
Not anywhere close to it. That Mint Hood still wasn't operational.
All right. Based upon your observations, was it capable of selling enough food so that food would comprise more than 50% of its sales?
No, sir.
Did did the licensee say anything to you about how alcohol was delivered to the establishment?
Just that they would go to the Buford Highway store and bring it to the store.
All right. Is there anything else you'd like to tell council regarding the food service that you found or didn't find?
It was more the lack of seeing any food service, the amount of alcohol that clearly goes through there. The refrigeration on the inside is not there. The small microwave is a small. It's about the size that you put in it's a kind of a desktop. These photographs that you're seeing here were taken at 10 o'clock at night on the 30th of April. In July. We went back in April, visited the same thing, and saw the same things. We went back even further than that the photographs are not displayed here, and observed the same thing. There were still no menus. There was no food that was seen. In our presence inside the establishment, in either undercover officers that had been in there, there was never any served food that was on the table during regular business hours or even later into the night that was ever served. Further in through some photographs, I think the only real food that we saw that was able to be served, if you will, were small lunch bag size potato chips, Fritos, and Cheetos, and that sort of thing.
Well, that's all I have. If you'd like to cross-examine.
Sergeant Rowe, in regard to the purchase of the alcohol from Buford Highway, were you... Sorry. Thank you. Sure. Sergeant Rowe, in regard to your testimony about where the alcohol is purchased, were you ever shown any of these invoices from either General Wholesale Company or Atlanta Beverage Company?
I have the documents from those business locations, or from those suppliers, for the past 24 months.
Okay. So you're aware that, in fact, then alcohol is delivered to El Andriego by those wholesalers, correct?
Yes, but on a very, 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 very minimal amount, according to the documents that we were provided.
But you've never seen all of these invoices, is that correct?
Those individual invoices, no, I haven't. I've seen an overall spreadsheet from the distributors themselves.
Okay. And how much alcohol is being delivered there during this past year from the wholesalers?
Let me take a look here. It's all the way in the very back. From General Wholesale, for the last 24 months, it would go back to about $24,000 worth of alcohol. And when I say alcohol, I'm generally referring to beer, because they only sell a certain amount. They only sell certain products. With respect to this other one, General Wholesale is the same. Is that they didn't actually get their Georgia liquor license until around February of 2010. So they actually didn't have a license from January until February of 2010. And the numbers just don't support the numbers that were previously provided in the amount of food that was being sold to the amount of alcohol that was being sold on a 49-51% scale.
But with regard to your testimony that the alcohol for the business was being purchased at Buford Highway, your implication was that all of it was being purchased there, but in fact 99% seems to have been purchased through the wholesalers, correct?
I wouldn't say 99% of it, no sir, I wouldn't say that. I'm going by what he told me was that they got beer from from a liquor store on Buford Highway.
And you don't
That's
know,
where they got
you don't
their
know how much beer he was referring to?
Oh, I've seen truckload after truckload after truckload of beer being wheeled in there on hand carts out of the back of pickup trucks and out of the back of vans at the business.
And were you there when, did you ever see patrons ordering food when you were there?
When I was there, no, I never saw any. I never saw food on the table, nor did I see food in the kitchen being available for service, except for the small, the very small vending machine size containers of potato chips.
How many days were you personally there?
Well, it's through the several times of the inspections, plus not me physically being there, but people that work for me being in there.
But something that you can testify of your own knowledge.
I can testify because of what my police officers tell me, that they were inside and never saw food on the table.
Well,
it was never available for them.
I'm going to object to that as being hearsay. But when you were there, what time of day or night were you there?
Well, this was always during business hours.
Okay. But ever at night?
They're only open at night.
Okay. And what times, how long were you staying there when you were there?
They open up at 7 at night until, from 7 at night until 4 in the morning.
And how many hours were you there?
Some nights we were there from 10 until close.
No further questions.
Thank you.
Does council have any questions for Sergeant Rowe?
Yes, sir. May I have a question for Detective
Yes,
Rowe? Thank you, sir. I just want to clarify one thing that you did say.
Mm-hmm.
You were there April 5, July 30.
Those 2 days.
But you said something about previous to April, you still saw the same circumstances, no menus, nothing that indicated any type of food service. So that was even prior to your April 5th visit?
Yes, ma'am.
So the menus, not seeing anything that indicated any type of food service was actually previous to your April 5
Yes, ma'am.
meeting. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Councilmember Price.
When was the liquor license issued?
The renewal of the license for this year was issued at the end of last year, effective January 1, 2010.
Like, when was the very, very beginning?
I believe that was 2004.
And at that time, was there clear evidence of food being able to be sold?
I'm sorry, I was not assigned to that particular group of investigators, though I am now.
I mean, I guess what I'm getting at is just from the pictures, it doesn't look like any substantial food was able to be cooked or sold or whatever. I'm just curious how they got a license in the first place.
Well, when you apply for a license, you say that you are going to have a restaurant and that you are going to be serving food. And when community development goes out and does the inspection, they see the kitchen facilities and have that, they check that off. When they appear before the Alcohol Review Board, the Alcohol Review Board questions them and asks, will you be selling food? The answer is yes. We take them at their word. It's only when later we get reports that food is not being served that we go investigate to find out whether that's true or not.
So for all we know, they've not been selling food the entire time?
We don't know. From what the lawyer for the licensee tells me, they were serving food. I don't know. But we do know that on the occasion of April 5th and on July 30th, there's no evidence that they were capable of selling food in the quantity to meet the 5149 requirement.
Thank you.
Councilmember Eichelhardt.
Thanks, sir. I have a question for Mr. Hulsey. Because as we've talked about other restaurants and what we do with the tables and all those kind of things, that we were told that at some point, if necessary, we'll check receipts and see what those numbers are of sales for food and for alcohol. So do we not have that for whatever time period, whether it's these 2 days or others as well? I thought we were able to do that to determine.
No, we don't ordinarily do that. We do that on a spot check basis across the city, but we don't do that on particular ones. This case is based upon when the police department came to legal and said, we have a violation, this is based upon our personal observation, and we had the underage sale, and we felt there was sufficient evidence of that. The count regarding the delivery of alcohol, again, was based upon what Sergeant Rowe learned from the licensee and from his manager about where they obtained the alcohol. Mr. Rothenberg has receipts saying that they got 99.9% of it from there. If so, they've still admitted that they got some of it elsewhere contrary to the ordinance. So with that, there's a violation. It'll be up to the council to weigh what Mr. Rothenberg tells you, the evidence he produces, to decide, based upon the demonstrated violations that occur, what the penalty should be in a civil sense.
Any other questions? Councilmember Orleans.
Sergeant Rowe, just wanted to clarify the numbers that you gave us from the wholesalers. You said what was purchased from the wholesaler was $24,000 worth of goods, and is that since January of this year? Or?
So this was over a 24-month period.
24 months.
And $165.48 was an invoice. $16,000 was an invoice. $7,000 was an invoice. But that included part of 09 and part of 10 because the way that the way that their license goes in between 9 and 10, because it's just the way that they break it down. Then it goes through 9, 6,700, and then 4,100 for 09 and 010, and then 746 and 385 for 9 and 10.
So for the last 2 years, and the total amount is how much?
The total amount for year 09 was $24,553. Total amount for 10 is $12,704. But according to their documents that they would have provided in their affidavit when they apply for their alcohol license, they break it down on the form of 49%, 51%, and break it down by the month sales. And these numbers here are far, far, far less than what would be indicated on those documents.
That's the documents they fill out for the city that show the percentages and what the totals are?
Yes, sir.
Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, sir.
And so the numbers that they put on that are much, much higher?
That's correct, compared to these numbers from the suppliers.
And do we have those numbers as well?
We have those numbers for 2009. They file those at the end of the year, so we don't have all of those numbers. We have them per month. But again, we're relying on the evidence of not having the facilities more than the documentation of it, because this council is authorized to look at the evidence and hear the testimony of Sergeant Rowe and come to the conclusion that it was impossible to provide food in the amount necessary to meet the 51% requirement.
Okay, thank you.
I have no further questions for Sergeant Rowe, and Mr. Rothenberg put on his evidence at this point.
Council, just give me 1 minute, please. Sure.
Anybody?
You can ask me. Ken.
No, I was just curious. This was determined by just routine inspection, or were there other issues going on at the address?
I'm sorry, can you ask the question again?
I guess what prompted the investigation? Is that your question?
Yes.
Other activities at the business.
And is that relevant or
No charges have been brought on that, and I don't think that those are relevant in this civil proceeding. It did bring the police to there to investigate that, and in the course of the other investigation, they discovered these facts, which we bring before you tonight.
Mr. Rothenberg, you may proceed.
Mr. Mayor, my client has informed me that he is declining to testify, so he was my only witness tonight. I do have the... Apologize. My client has informed me that he's declined to testify tonight. I do have the receipts. I do have the invoices showing when the work period was for the new kitchen equipment and the gas sewer line, which prevented the sale of food. I believe the evidence would have shown that for the last 5 years he has been serving food the entire time there. I don't have records to show exactly what percentage it was. I think that pictures can be misleading to the extent that in this particular instance a lot of food was brought in to be sold, which is not to my knowledge a violation of the ordinance. But my client has decided not to.
So you're tendering documentary evidence, and that's your case?
I'm afraid so, Your Honor.
Mr. Halsey, do you have any objection to the documentary evidence being tendered?
No, Mayor, I don't.
Does the council have any questions for Mr. Rothenberg? Mr. Rothenberg, at this time I'll allow you to make your closing statement, if any, and Mr. Halsey, you can respond, and then the council will take this up.
I understand that the evidence presented that there is a clear violation on the sale to a minor. My client was not present. This is the only time that there's been this violation. With regard to the alcohol from a non-distributor, my client, really again being from another country, was not up to date on the ordinance, but 99% of it came from the wholesalers, and the testimony about things being unloaded is a little vague, but and then with regard to the food sales, there's always been food sales there. It's a little difficult to always know when people come in if they're going to order how much food and how much alcohol. I understand the city of Roswell doesn't allow bars, but it has to be a restaurant with a certain amount of food sales. My client is in the process of updating the kitchen and has spent a lot of money to do that and has 6 years invested in this business. One council member asked what prompted this. There's a whole story behind that, but without the ability to have someone testify, I can't bring it to your attention, but it's exceedingly unfair to my client. What we're asking for, since the council has the authority to either revoke or suspend the license, would be a suspension to allow this new equipment to become operational and for the food sales to dramatically increase. The revocation of the alcohol license will result in the immediate failure of this business. It cannot succeed with just and pay its rent and employees with just straight food sales. And that will result in a lot of innocent people losing their jobs, and it'll be catastrophic for my client, possibly bankruptcy or losing his home. And so while the city has put on a strong case for these violations, other than the violation of the ordinance, nobody was injured, and my client is asking to be given an opportunity to continue the business and to comply with the ordinance. And I would ask for a 30-day suspension. Even a 60 or 90-day suspension, which might seem reasonable, will put him out of business because of the inability to generate enough revenue to pay the monthly expenses. Thank you.
Mr. Halsey.
Mr. Mayor, I believe that the evidence clearly shows a violation of sale of alcohol to an undercover agent. That's been stipulated. That is enough to enable council to decide whether to suspend or revoke. The reason we brought the food charge is you see the evidence that the kitchen facilities simply are not adequate to meet the definition of a restaurant, which, according to our ordinance, you have to be able to serve at least one meal 5 days a week. And what we saw in these pictures would not meet that. I don't think potato chips and Cheetos are going to amount to that.
Mr. Halsey, I lived on that in law school.
Probably great quantities, Mayor, but nonetheless, this council has stated over the years and made it very clear to all who come before it and directed the Alcohol Beverage Council and the legal department that we do not have bars, we do not want bars, and the distinction is that we want places where families can go, where people can get food, and they get a drink incidental to that, rather than having an establishment that is there primarily to serve alcohol with food just being an incidental. I believe that's what council has before it. While the city is sympathetic to the business problems that exist, nonetheless, the alcohol ordinance is clear. The licensee, when he got his license, stated that he understood the ordinance, had read the ordinance, and would follow the ordinance. Clearly, that has not been done. It is within the discretion of council to either do a suspension. You can do 1 day up to 4 months, because that's what's left in the term of this license is 4 months, or revocation. The recommendation of the police department expressed to me is that they recommend revocation. And that's what we would ask council for tonight, is revocation rather than suspension. But it is in the discretion of council to do as it sees fit. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Halls. The evidence is closed. Does the council have any questions for Mr. Davidson, Mrs. Wynn?
I don't know if I can ask Detective Rowe another question then, since everything's closed.
Everything is closed. We've heard from
Okay.
the city. We've heard from the defendant in this case. You've got the evidence before you.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Davidson? Would you explain the process at this point in time?
Right now, we call for a motion, and the council can vote.
Any comments before we call for a motion? Do we have a motion?
I'll take it. My motion is to complete revocation of the liquor license.
Motion for revocation by Councilmember Wynn. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Orleans. Is there any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, raise your hands. Pardon me, was that Orleans? Did you wish to make a comment?
Yes. Counselor, I know you had indicated that your client indicated he was not up to date in the ordinance, and we have made that a point whenever anyone comes in to get a license. It's one of the things we always make sure of, that they have read the ordinance and they understand the ordinance. So I just can't accept that, and that was up to the applicant to be well aware of and understand our ordinances.
Mr. Rothenberg, this isn't the time to respond. I've given the council a question to make comment, but we've heard closing arguments, and we're not hearing more evidence, more argument. But we're hearing from council any comments they wish to make before they take a vote. Councilmember DiPolito.
I think it's clear that there's no intention to sell any significant amount of food when you look at a renovation that occurred in April, and we're now bumping up against September. That's a significant amount of time to be without a kitchen if you're truly a restaurant. So I think that argument is also pretty difficult to swallow as well.
Anyone else wish to comment before we take a vote? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously. The license is revoked. This time, Mr. Tulls, if you'll call the second case. The defendant from the first case is excused.
Council, this is, and I'll let you pronounce your last name, Jeffrey P. Monsiagli. He is the attorney for Crystal Lounge, Inc., and that is the hearing that we call next. It is the suspension or revocation of the alcohol license of Fabiola Gutierrez, licensee for Crystal Lounge, Inc., 3050 Mansell Road. Again, as before, we have a stipulation with counsel regarding sale of alcohol to a minor. That stipulation is on the record, so we have a violation that the parties have stipulated to. Again, civil case, preponderance of the evidence.
Because if we could remove this photograph from the screen, I think that's the previous case.
Yes. Sergeant Rowe, will you get to
Sorry to
your
interrupt, but I think we need to close that case.
I need the disc.
Thank you.
Sorry, over here. Mr. Mayor, while he gets the photographs up, I'll review the charges. The first charge, the sale to the minor. As I say, we've already taken care of that. The second charge is, again, a food violation, again, Section 3.7.3, A1 through 4, because the licensed premises does not contain kitchen facilities to adequately prepare and serve meals on the premises for customers, and less than 50% of the licensee's sales are from food. And again, you have the authority to go anywhere from suspension to revocation. Do you want... I don't think we need to go into any more beforehand, and we'll let Sergeant Rode testify, so I'll let Mr. Mangiagli do his statement at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I'm just going to address you briefly. Before the evidence is presented, you've heard that we are admitting to the first allegation in the resolution that a sale of an alcoholic beverage was made to an to a person under the age of 21 on the date indicated. Before we get to the evidence, though, as you know, the resolution sets out charges. There are two charges in this case. The second one makes specific reference, well, both of them, in fact, make specific reference to July 30th of 2010. And I noticed in the previous hearing that evidence and photographs were admitted for dates other than those listed in the resolution, and I'm going to object to that prior to, I'm not sure what these photographs will show or when they were taken, but if they don't address...
We'll hear an argument over admissibility of evidence when it's presented.
Okay. And the rest of it I'll reserve for after the evidence.
This tells you, when you get to the photographs, if you lay a foundation before you would
Yes, sir.
offer those into evidence.
I will do so. All right, Sergeant Rowe, if you would stand, please. Raise your right hand. Do you swear the evidence you were going to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I did.
All right. Do I need to go? You remember who Sergeant Rowe is from the last hearing, I would assume?
Yes, sir.
All right, we'll go from there. Sergeant Rowe, if you would, tell counsel what you observed when you went to Crystal Lounge on July 30th, 2010, regarding their service of food or lack thereof.
When we entered the business, there was a very small amount of patrons that were inside. We reviewed the kitchen area.
What hour of day did you arrive?
This was around 11:30 at night. While we were in there, we reviewed the kitchen. We photographed the kitchen.
When you say we, who would we be?
There was myself and some other agents that were within my squad. Reviewed the on the 30th. was when the alcoholic beverage was sold to the minor. During the period of time of writing out the citation, we reviewed the kitchen area and saw that there was the same lack of food. Each time that in the past, when we've been to that business and asked when the kitchen was going to open up, just in general conversation, when's the cook going to be here? I'm kind of hungry. When's something going to be served? And, well, my cook is going to be here in a little while.
You recall the period of time in which these earlier visits occurred?
April the 5th was a previous visit, and during other...
April 5th of 2010?
Of 2010, yes, sir. It was about 10, it was right around 11 o'clock at night. Again, back on the 30th, when we looked at the lack of food for sale in the kitchen area, there is a flat top grill.
Sergeant Rowe, did you take photographs at Crystal Lounge that night of July 30th?
Yes,
Do you have those photographs here?
I do.
All right. And did you personally take the photographs?
I did.
All right. Mayor, I believe that establishes the foundation for the photographs that we're about to show council regarding July 30th. Sergeant Rowe, if you would. Objection?
No objection.
Okay.
You want the 30th?
30th.
On the 30th. I need the other disc, unless you want to establish it from April the 5th, because that's where those photos are.
On April the 5th, did you take photographs as well?
Yes, I did.
All right. Mr. Mayor, I submit that given what Sergeant Rowe was told the night of July 30th regarding where the cook was and whether there was food or not, and it was the same thing that he was told April 5th, that establishes a pattern, and council can consider the April 5th evidence as a pattern to decide whether or not the preponderance of evidence on July 30th supports that they were not serving food.
Are you tendering the photographs from April 10th?
Yes, sir. I'd like to. Sergeant Rowe has testified that he took the photographs. He was there on April 5th, and yes, I would tender all the photographs at that time.
So we had no objection to July 30th?
Correct.
Is there an objection to the April 10th photographs?
April 5th.
April 5th.
There is, sir.
We'll hear what the objection is.
I'm sorry?
We'll hear the objection at this time.
Well, the objection is simply that the resolution sets out a very specific incident.
Can you please go to the microphone? Thank you.
Yes. I thought that one was working as well. The resolution sets out two violations occurring on July 30th, and the resolution indicates that the hearing will be in regard to those charges set out in the resolution. Therefore, the evidence as presented should pertain to the charges that are set out, and that's the basis for objection to photographs or testimony, for that matter, regarding dates that are not set out in the resolution.
This is a civil matter. I think it relates to the evidence. I don't think they're showing it's another occasion when there wasn't food. So, to the extent I have make the decision, I'm going to admit the evidence of the photographs on April 5th.
Sergeant Rowe, if you would show the council the photographs of April 5th or comment on the ones that you feel are necessary.
This is the kitchen area. This is like a sandwich area. When we raised up this hood, this right here, roach bugs probably as big as my little finger came crawling out. A can of beans. There was just some wrapping here, some oil and spices and that sort of thing, but no significant amount of food. These two bags here of tortillas and some peppers and some sauce. Within the large walk-in cooler, you can see how much beer was here. We find no amount of food in these little stand-up shelves over here to the side. Up at the very top, you can see a small microwave. These little small little serving bottles. These rolls that were there, there's really no telling how long they were there because they were like really hard, stale, old. Here in the refrigerator, that's directly as you walk into the kitchen area. Do it again. Next one. This is a fryolator that they have. Within that fryolator is where they would cook what I would think would be something to fry. However, when you remove this aluminum foil that was there is oil on the inside of it. You can see how it's built up oil on the outside here. The oil on the inside was a very rancid smelling oil. It was very dirty, and the oil was cold. The cook top here. This was again. It was cold. There was nothing. There was some up underneath this little plate over here in the back left-hand corner. Is a little skillet. There was some beans in it, and those beans were all dried up as though they'd been sitting there for quite some time. There's a few dishes in there, but for the size and the amount of people that would be coming through there, to rotate through that amount of dishes and plates would do a lot.
Sergeant Rowe, can we go to the photographs for July 30th?
That's like 27.
Those are the only three we have.
All right, where is it? I can go through the same ones.
Just pick out the ones you need.
Some of the photographs. How does this work?
Julie, can you help us?
During our visit on the 30th for the sale of alcohol to a minor, the kitchen was in the same state. When we went into the kitchen, the manager, Mr. Soto, was in there. He was actually laying down on the floor when we went in to identify who it was that actually sold alcohol to the minor. It turned out that it was Mr. Soto's mother who was working behind the bar. She did have a server's permit, she did have a server's permit inside the business, and she was the one that actually sold the alcohol to the minor. When Mr. Soto, the manager, was laying out on the floor, he was actually trying to fix one of the refrigerators that I think I showed a photograph of just a few minutes ago. Again, the kitchen, the stove, the oil was cold. The food was even less than what you see here. When I asked again, Mr. Soto, when your cook was going to be in, she's on the way, she'll be here in a little while. But we were there, we had other people inside the business, and there was never anybody that ever showed up inside to sell food to anyone. We saw no food service. We saw no menus for service, and there was a very limited amount of people on the inside of the establishment as well, and there was no food on the table. It was just drinks.
Sergeant Rowe, based upon your personal observations of Crystal Lounge on July 30th, was it capable of serving food on a regular basis?
No, it was not.
based upon your personal observations on July 30th at Crystal Lounge, in your opinion, were they serving 50% or more of their sales in food?
No, they weren't serving anything. The kitchen area was actually closed. There was nothing served, and it was in the same state as what we saw it back in early April.
Is there anything else you want to tell council about your visit to Crystal Lounge on July 30th?
During our visit on the 30th, some of the other activity that we noted was that there were video gambling machines, video poker machines that were inside there, and as a follow-up to that, we served a search warrant this past week and seized 3 machines, and the manager at the time was arrested for operating the commercial gambling.
Depending upon what council does tonight, we would have to bring a separate case regarding that. Right. I have nothing further for Sergeant Rowe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sergeant Rowe, I'm assuming this was also a sting
Yes,
for the
ma'am.
minor?
Yes, ma'am, it was.
How many stings have you served to this restaurant? Do you know?
How many?
How many times previously has this restaurant been a part of a sting?
Under my unit, 1 time.
And this is the first time?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and how long have you been with this unit, sir?
Since doing these types of investigations for about the last year.
So, okay, but this is the first thing that you remember for this, or that has been that you did on this restaurant. Am I right? I'm sorry, it's late. Is this is the first sting, the initial sting, first thing that you've done on Crystal Lounge?
For the purposes of alcohol, yes,
Yes.
ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Was the minor carded?
No, there was no identification asked for.
I'm sorry, Sergeant, your last name I haven't heard it.
Rowe.
Rowe. Okay. You indicated, I believe, that on both occasions, April 5th and July 30th, at the time you were there, which I believe was around between 10 and 11 p.m., is
Yes.
that right?
Yes.
On both occasions?
Yes,
That there were very few customers in the restaurant, is that right?
that's correct.
Right. And the hours of operation of the location are until 4 a.m., right?
Until 2 a.m.
Or is the 2 a.m. just for alcohol service, or does it actually close? Does the business close at 2 a.m.?
My understanding is the business should close at 2 a.m.
Okay. After your operations on those evenings, did you stay until later in the evening? I mean, did you stay, were you there, say, from 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock?
For this particular operation, it was done until they closed.
Okay. Now, is it possible that on a regular basis, not necessarily on the nights that you were there, that there was a police presence there, because that may have deterred customers from coming, but that the majority of their clientele doesn't arrive until later than when you arrived on those 2 visits, on the 5th and the 30th?
During the times that we were there?
No, on other occasions, because I'm assuming that if there was a police presence there, that people may not have entered the restaurant at that point.
If they recognize my police presence, and I've got an issue because we're plainclothes, we're undercover.
All right, but at a certain point you started ticketing and inspecting and whatnot, right?
Yes.
Okay, I mean, at that point it became apparent that there was a police presence, no?
On that day?
Yeah, those are the days I'm referring to. I'm talking about just on a regular basis, on nights that you weren't there, is it possible that the majority of their clientele doesn't arrive until much later than you were there?
Your Honor, I would object. I mean, Mr. Mayor, I would object to that as calling for speculation because he wasn't there. He wouldn't know.
I can answer the question to the extent that when the uniformed patrol officers would respond there to loud noise complaints, that there were probably a few more people there than were there when we were there.
All right. You're aware that a Roswell police officer off duty works there on Saturdays, is that right? Do you know that?
Yes.
All right. Have you interviewed him about what he's observed at the location regarding food sales?
No.
Or about the hours that the restaurant is most occupied? Have you spoken to him at all about that? Okay. You interviewed or questioned Mr. Soto about the food service on the 2 nights that you were there, right?
Yes.
And on both occasions, he told you that that food was being brought in, right?
Yes. We never saw it.
No, you never saw it, but that's what his explanation was, right?
Yes.
All right. When you talk about a small number of patrons on the 5th and the 30th, I mean, what's a ballpark figure? 5 to 10 people, or?
Probably on the 5th there was probably a dozen. On the 30th there was equal to or less than. The other night when we served the search warrant for the gambling, it was probably 2 or 3. Right. In addition to his dancers and employees.
All right. So even if all of those people were ordering food, you would expect that the dollar volume of food sale would be low, right? Even if there were only 5 to 10 people, say, there isn't going to be much food sold regardless.
Well, I think you'd have to have food there and some way to cook it or to serve it in order for it to be low. Yes.
Right, but what about my question? I mean, let's say that everyone had ordered and been served food. The dollar amount that would have been sold would be fairly low, right?
Yes.
Okay. Did you make any attempt to determine what the alcohol sales were on those nights?
I saw that on the tables and the people that were there that they would have beers in their hands or on their tables.
Right, but in terms of a dollar figure,
$4 a beer.
All right. So in order to meet that 51-49%, they would have to sell just a little bit more food than alcohol on that day, right?
Yes.
And if in fact on a regular basis they bring in their food at midnight because that's when people order their food, they could make up that volume fairly readily, right?
During the times that we were there, it was not brought in at midnight.
Okay, so on those 2 occasions, right? I mean, that's all you can testify to, is that on those 2 occasions that food did not arrive while you were there.
That's right.
Okay. Now, Crystal Lounge has been operating at that location for how long, do you know?
They opened up after Chickens and Hens got closed down, so it's maybe a year.
About a year?
Maybe, yeah.
During that time, whether it was your investigation or not, are you aware of whether Crystal Lounge has been cited for, the improper food sale or the lack of food sale during that 1 year period?
Not that I'm aware of.
I believe that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
No further questions for Sergeant Rowe. No, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Javier Soto. Come up here, please. Hold that. Mr. Soto, what is your position at Crystal Lounge?
I'm a manager.
All right. And what days of the week is Crystal Lounge open typically?
Well, we open 6 days per week. We close on Wednesdays.
All right. And are you there almost every night, if not every night that the business is open?
Yes. Most of the time I'm working, yeah.
All right. And what are some of the functions that you provide at the restaurant?
Okay. If somebody don't show, like let's say like a bartender, sometimes if the girl, who work in the kitchen don't come, I mean, I'm supposed to work in the kitchen too, but I do everything. Yeah, if she don't, like I say, if she don't come, because I know we're supposed to sell 50% of food, I gotta do it, because sometimes when she call me, if she don't come for any reason, so she called me and I'm the one who take care of the kitchen.
Okay. Does the restaurant in fact serve food on a regular basis?
Exactly.
How is that done?
What do you mean?
Well, you've seen some of the pictures, and the sergeant testified that he didn't see food.
Exactly. Oh, well, okay, this is the thing. Most of the time, all the time, what I do, or what we do is bring the food. We buy the food every day. If not, sometimes I don't have time to get the food. I call my wife, and she's the one providing the food. So, like I say, sometimes I'm real busy because I work daytime, nighttime. So sometimes I'm a little bit, late. So I call her, they bring me the food or whatever I need, and she's the one who bring me the food. Sometimes if I don't do it, but most of the time, I mean, I get the food.
All right, just so that we all understand, are you saying that you bring what you need to serve each day rather than buy it in bulk?
Like I say, if I don't do it, she do it. If not, the girl, whoever is working in the kitchen, she's supposed to do it. She's supposed to get it. Yeah.
What are the hours typically that you're open that most people arrive and order food?
Okay, let me tell you. It depends. Sometimes I know they come around between 10 and 11. Sometimes it's not people. They was there last week. They know we don't have not even one customer that night. So it depends. If the people come, it depends. Let's say if the people start come around 12 midnight, sometimes they come around 12, sometimes they come around 1 o'clock in the morning. Is when we start doing the food, or start burning the stove or whatever. It depends. Like I say, it depends. If we got customer early, which is never. I mean, we start early, but like I say, we start around midnight, 11 midnight with the kitchen.
Is it your testimony that the majority of your food sales are done shortly before closing, between midnight and 2 o'clock?
Exactly. Yeah.
There was a picture. It's still up. Is it the practice of Crystal Lounge to serve minors? Do you serve minors, or do you have a practice to not serve minors?
No, I have a practice not serve minors.
All right.
Yeah.
And can you translate the sign that's written in this picture?
Yeah, in that picture, and the one who dropped the sign is we don't sell alcohol to minors. It's against the law.
All right. And that is something that the employees of the restaurant are made aware of, right?
Exactly.
So if an alcohol sale was made to a minor, which it was on July 30th, was that an accident?
Exactly. That was an accident, and believe it or not, my mom is the one who worked that night, so we suspend her for a couple of days because she's not supposed to do that. She completely forgot us to the lady or whoever was there for ID.
That's all the questions I have. The members of the council or this gentleman may have questions as well. Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Soto, do you recall telling Sergeant Rowe over here, excuse me, on the night of July 30th that the cook was on her way and was bringing the food with her?
Exactly.
All right. Did the cook ever arrive that night?
Yep. Yeah.
So it surprised you that Sergeant Rowe testifies that there was nobody there during all the way up through closing with food?
Well, it's like I say, that night, like I said, we don't start until if she don't come, I'm the one who take care of the kitchen. Okay. So she come around midnight because this is what happened. She called me before she come. If she asked me if it's people or not, and then the place. See, sometimes she called me. Sometimes I come around 7, to clean it up and all that. So she called me if it's people in there. If it's people, she come right away.
Okay. So if you don't have people, you don't have the cook come.
We cook. Even if we don't have people, we do.
Well, who cooks if the cook's not there?
If she's not there, I'm the one who takes care of the kitchen.
You cook.
Yeah.
What do you cook?
Let me tell you. Sometimes I do tacos, tortas, Mexican food. Sometimes I have to work when my mom gets sick or something like that. I have to work in the kitchen. Sometimes I have to work in the bar. So.
Are there any printed menus?
No, I don't have any menus. I try to tell I tell the lady who take care of the table to tell them what we got.
Okay. What could you tell the council what prices are for your food?
For the food, yeah. We got tacos. The order is $7, 3 tacos. We got tortas, which is $5. We got chicken wings with fries, which is $10. We got flautas, maybe you don't know that. Flautas, we call flautas, which is 2 flautas for $4. We got carne asada, which is $10. And we got more stuff.
All right. What do you charge for beer?
For beer, $4.
All right. That's all the questions I have. Thank you.
No, I don't. But I had all the receipts in my place.
You have all the receipts for your place, but you didn't bring any.
Yeah, I don't bring any.
How much is your? Do you buy the food or somebody else?
Like I say, sometimes I buy the food. Sometimes my wife, when I have time, she's the one to take care. And then, but like I say, I have a girl who takes care of the kitchen. But sometimes she did it. But I'm the one who put the money.
You keep a record of all
exactly.
Do you keep a record of how much food you buy a week?
Exactly. I got the receipt.
So how much did you spend last week in food?
Last week, let's say about $700-800.
How much did you spend on beer last week?
The beer, I pay. Let me tell you, $450 for one side, and I pay like around almost the same thing, $550 for the other.
So you bought $700 worth of food, and you bought $950 worth of beer.
Planning that.
No further questions from me. Any of the council have any questions? Councilmember Wynn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Soto, I want a clarification, please. You said that the cook would bring the food every day, but if the cook didn't show up, then you would be in the kitchen. So what do you cook if she's bringing the food?
My wife is the one who makes the cook. I call her.
And you only cook from midnight until 2 in the morning, and that's it?
No. Let me tell you. Sometimes we close the bar at 2 o'clock in the morning. 2 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes the people still ask me for food. Sometimes we close at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Okay, what do you do with the extra food? I mean, if Detective Rowe has never seen any evidence of food, what do you do with the extra
like I
food? Are
said,
you
let-
going
let
to
me-
tell me you're so great that you can buy enough food that everybody eats that night?
Exactly. Let me tell you what happened. When we started over there, she spent a lot of money, and because we left the food over there. Okay, so to us, I believe to her, it's better if we get the food, bring it every single day. Sometimes we left the food over there. When it's too late, we leave it over there. But the next day, if it's an extra food, we bring it back home, and the next day we know we need more food, so we got more from. It's what we do.
Okay, and one other question on the minor. Nobody carded her to ask her. Nobody asked for her identification. Did
Oh
anyone?
no, I believe no.
Nobody asked for her identification.
That night I was in the kitchen. I don't even know.
No. I don't care where you were.
Okay.
When the person comes in, was she asked for her identification before she was served alcohol?
No.
Thank you.
Any other council members have any questions? At this time, we'll hear any closing arguments. First from the defense.
Thank you. As part of my argument, I'd like to tell you a little bit about the license holder, Ms. Gutierrez, who's seated here. She doesn't.
I don't want to hear evidence that's not in the case already. If the evidence is closed, and I'm not going to hear introduction of additional evidence in this case, so you need to argue the case based upon the facts and the evidence.
Right. This doesn't go to the facts of the case, Your Honor. I mean, what I'm doing in my closing is addressing what is an appropriate resolution. We have admitted the violation regarding the service to a minor. We've disputed the sales issue, and I think that through the testimony of Mr. Soto, it establishes, at least it makes it much less clear. You know, if you listen to the sergeant, he didn't see food there. He saw that the grill was cold. It makes it sound similar to the prior case, and it's much different from that. They do bring the food there. Food is served on a regular basis. You heard the sergeant's testimony that there were only a handful of people in there at a time. It's not like a Chili's, you know, where the kitchen is in operation all the time. It's a mom and pop operation, and if there's no one there, they don't have the kitchen up and running. When people arrive, they get the kitchen going. I know that based on the first violation, that's sufficient for the council to take whatever action it deems necessary, including revocation. I'm suggesting that would be excessive in this instance. It's the first time that this license holder has been before you. It alleges a single violation of the sale to a minor. Those things I suggest to you happen from time to time in any organization. There are rules that are set out, and employees don't always follow those rules. Ms. Gutierrez is a license holder, and I know that she's legally responsible, and it's her license that's at stake. But this is not a business that's running amok, that's out of control. Technically, there was a violation which could lead to a revocation, but I don't think that there's a pattern of bad behavior on their part that would justify that kind of finding. Ms. Gutierrez is a U.S. citizen. She's an immigrant to the country. Mr. Soto has a work permit. He's also an immigrant. And they're doing, the best they can. They've opened a small business. They're trying to abide by the rules. Obviously, in this case, there was a violation. They're sorry about that, but they're asking the council to be given an opportunity to continue. Ms. Gutierrez, this is her only source of income. She supports a family. She sends money to her mother, who does not live here. And a revocation or a significant suspension would mean shutting down the business. They don't have the resources to go on, much longer than a week without it. And given all the circumstances, I'm asking the council to suspend the license, maybe for a week or 10 days. That may not sound like much to the council. It would have a definite impact on them. It would wake them up, make sure that they get back in full compliance, and basically, to give them another opportunity. And that's all I have, and I thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Halsey.
Mayor and Council, again, I think the issue here is a pattern. I believe the testimony shows that Sergeant Rowe was out there on April 5th. You saw the photographs. We have conflicting stories from Mr. Soto saying that he buys the food and the cook comes and cooks it. He tells Sergeant Rowe that the cook brings the food and comes there. In whatever case, there are no printed menus. There's no menu on the wall. I believe that they've stressed that many times they have a very small crowd, therefore they wouldn't sell much food. They don't begin selling food until after midnight in most cases, and would only sell till 2, perhaps 4. They can only serve alcohol until 2. He has receipts, but he didn't bring those receipts. Based upon the preponderance of the evidence, I think clearly there is no restaurant operating on the premises. There's money being made from activities other than food, other than alcohol sales. We could not bring the charge of commercial gambling to you tonight, but that was charged.
I don't hear about commercial gambling.
That's fine, you're right.
Irrelevant.
Well, except that again, it goes to, they're saying there's no pattern.
We're here on alcohol.
Right.
I don't want to introduce commercial gambling, which y'all haven't approved, and it's not before this council.
Yes. Clear violation selling to a minor. I think that you have to use the eyeball test on this, Mayor and Council. I think you saw the pictures. I think that this is even worse than the previous case because the kitchen facilities are there. They can be used. They should be used. They're supposed to be used. There's evidence that they're not being used. It's a violation. Any violation of this would warrant revocation or suspension. Again, it's in your discretion, but the police department feels very strongly and has asked me to pass along to you that is their recommendation that this council revoke the license, not suspend it. Thank you.
Any comments from council before we entertain a motion?
Yes,
Councilmember Wynn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think my whole problem with this is, number one, they did not card the minor or the person who was ordering the alcohol, and that should be a given. That's what you do all the time. I don't care if they look like they're 80 years old, you card them. And my other concern is when I read the ordinance, it says that it should have with adequate and sanitary kitchen facilities and staff to prepare, cook, and serve suitable food for its guests. We can prove it's not sanitary. And you do not always have the staff, so right there you're in violation. So those are just my comments right now. I think serving to a minor is inexcusable. Thank you.
Any other comments before we entertain a motion? Do we have a motion? Motion to revoke by Councilmember Wynn. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Orleans. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously. Any further business to conduct tonight, Mr. Davidson?
Yes, sir. I have a recommendation for closure to discuss personnel.
Do we have a motion for closure? Motion by Councilmember Price. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember DiPolito. All in favor, raise their hands. Passes unanimously. We're adjourned. We're in the admin conference room.